Good afternoon. Welcome to Inspire and Empower You. I am your host, Diane Smith. Thank you also for joining us today. I am super excited today. Listen, you all, we have a wonderful, impactful, heart inspiring show for you today. So I'm just asking you all to just lean in today. For some of you out there, you may not know that this show is centered around adding value in the areas of self-care, self-love, spiritual restoration, and we talk much about resilience. We want to have guests experts on to talk and share what they do in their industry and how they can impact the communities and add value. We talk about leadership and also about building connections and supporting our fellow women, because pretty much this show is centered around women. But we have men come on, as we can see. My guest today, Mr. Tiran Jackson, who's going to share something, his story that's going to be impactful for all people. And this show it's just about relevant and relatable topics. So I am so grateful to be here today. And I just ask you all to go ahead and share, hit that share button. We want to know that you're all out there today. This is going to be one impactful show that's going to really, I believe, is going to help you all, and it certainly has helped me. So my guest, Tiran Jackson, oh my goodness, what can I say? First and foremost, Tiran is a comrade of mine in the business industry. We work together, helping each other in so many ways. And I'm so grateful to have him on my show today. It's an honor to have Tiran here today. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tiran for you all out there today in the virtual and listening audience. Tiran Jackson is a dynamic author, speaker, visionary, entrepreneur. Isn't just a survivor, he's a thriver. His own profound journey, marked by personal tragedy, loss, and triumph resilience, is a testament to the human spirit and domino will to overcome. Starting his career as an engineer, Tiran was on the path to success, but life had other plans. Through transformational experience, he discovered his true purpose, inspiring others to find their own path. Tiran's authenticity and vulnerability now serve as guiding lights for those seeking resilience, courage, and strength. Today, he doesn't just inspire, he empowers. Tiran's mission is to help you discover your authentic self, embrace your vulnerabilities, and set forth boldly towards your dreams. So listen, virtual audience, listening audience, please lean in today as I welcome my guest, Tiran Jackson, to the show today. I am so happy, Tiran, to have you here on Inspire and Empower You today. It's such an honor, and I'm excited. And just knowing your story, hearing your story, and you're going to share it today, it really, I'm going to say this to the audience. Everybody, I'm sure, has experienced adversity. We all can agree out there in the listening and virtual audience that, hey, if you live long, you're going to experience adversities, huh? And so there's so many layers of adversities. Some have many, some have few, but we have them all the more. And so I want to just say today, as he comes on and shares his story, just be open, because listen, things happen in life, but we realize in life as we go through life, man, that thing really wasn't, it was for to teach us something, but it really was to help somebody else out there. So my guest today, I'm telling you, he's going to come, he's going to bring it and share his heart with all of you. And it's going to really, really help us in so many ways. I'm excited. He has helped me, and I've cried, but it has helped me overcome some things. So listen, lean in, chime in. If you have comments today, please, questions for Tiran today, please put those comments in. You have questions, he is here to answer. So without further ado, I just want to introduce Tiran Jackson to the show today. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Tiran. And before we get started, I want to know about your personal journey, Tiran. My question first and foremost is, could you share with us, some of the pivotal moments from your personal journey that led to your transformation, from being engineering to an inspirational speaker and entrepreneur today. Can you share with the audience first and foremost?
Yeah, no, first off, thank you for that introduction, Diane. I appreciate it. And for everybody out there, I appreciate you being a part. Without getting too deep into it, there is one pivotal moment where I realized my life was going to go in a different direction. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but God was talking to me and he was telling me a message. And I'll touch it. I go into that a little bit deeper as we get into just my whole story. But there was a clear defining moment in which I knew that the life that I had was not going to be the life that I was going to move forward with. And that started a transformation. And that transformation led to exploring completely different avenues and paths that I didn't see coming. And I refer to it as the moment that I was reborn. And as I go into, my business, my platform is called Reborn Resilient. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell all of you guys a story that's going to change your perspective on a lot of things related to life and how, we go down a journey and a path that we don't necessarily see ourselves going. But sometimes it takes, a greater direction from God or some means of being able to guide you down something that you might not even be aware was meant for you. So.
Wow, my goodness. You are absolutely right. I can concur on that, Tiran. We never know. And, this scripture comes to mind, Tiran, where it says in the Bible, I think it's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, where it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Like in all your ways, acknowledge him. He should direct your path, because you don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. And things happen in our lives that we don't understand why it happened, right? And I tell you, that faith and God, having a relationship with God, really, Tiran, I mean, you can attest what you just said. That really helped me get through a lot of things, and still today. And so my question is, as you tell your story, I would like to know in the audience, I'm sure, how did you navigate through what you went through? So can you share your story and how you navigated through that personal tragedy, the loss, and how you emerged now to be a thriver?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, everybody sit down. Okay. I'm going to take you on a journey with me. I'm going to take you guys back. This was 2018. In 2018, myself and my wife, Malika, we were getting ready to celebrate a momentous time. We were getting ready to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary. And as we were leading up to this moment, we had a lot of things going on in our life. Now, I started out as an engineer, and I've worked for several big companies, and I was a manager for a company, and they had me traveling all over the place. So it seemed as if I was pretty busy. And then she had just gotten promoted as a director. She was a HR executive. She was the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for her company, and had just been put into that role about 6 weeks before our vacation. And so she would be gone 1 week and I would be at home taking care of our son, Cameron. And then when she would come back, I would be traveling the next week. So we really weren't having as much time together as we wanted leading up to this moment. But that made us being able to take this break, this disconnection from everything that was going on in our lives, to really be able to spend a couple of days to focus and reconnect with one another. So going back to June 2018, the day before the trip, I took my son to Nashville to stay with his uncle. I told him, son, I'll be back in 1 week to pick you up. And he was already of the mindset that mom and dad are getting ready to go on vacation. They're going to have a good time. He's going to have a good time terrorizing my brother-in-law's dogs and messing with his cousins and staying up late. So he was excited, get the little separation from us for a little bit. But the intent and the plan was to be back there next week to pick him up. So I left them, dropped him off thinking that everything was going to be fine. And Malika and we got back to Atlanta and was getting ready to take off the next day for our trip to the Bahamas. We go to the Bahamas. First 2 days, they were great. Had some time at the beach, had some fruity drinks, some time at the pool, took some pictures. Everything was good. We spent time bonding, connecting, talking about everything that we had gone through and all we were going to go through over the course of the next 15 years and the 15 years after that, and so on and so forth. On the third day, we thought we were going to do something adventurous. We were going to leave the resort and we were going to actually go on an island excursion. People do this all the time. So we booked an appointment to be able to decide between if we wanted to go on a half-day excursion or we're going on a full-day excursion. And as we were thinking about this, we're talking about it, how much time we wanted to spend on it. She wanted to get back to the spa later that afternoon. I wanted to go golfing that afternoon. So we said, instead of doing the full day, we'll do this half-day tour. So we got up that morning. Everything seemed great. We got to the edge of the resort where a bus was picking us up and stopping by a couple of different resorts before going to this marina. We get to the marina at about 8:45. And as we get up to the counter, we have to make the decision for sure. Did we want to do the half-day tour or the whole day tour? And I said, okay, let's go ahead. We talked about this already. We're going to do this half-day tour. So we pay for doing that, and we wait a little bit before we actually board our boat. But they've got 2 boats taking off at the same time. And so as we take off, everything seems great. Air seems, is fresh, is wonderful. The weather is perfect. I'm sitting there with my baby, and I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be the highlight of our vacation, that we're going to have a wonderful time on this tour, and we're going to have something that we'll definitely remember as we move forward. Well, unbeknownst to me, it was going to be something I was going to remember for a different reason. As we took off at 9 a.m. to start this excursion, everything seemed perfectly fine. And I can remember having my arm over Malika, and I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a great day. For 5 minutes of the ride, my life changed forever. We didn't realize this, but where we were sitting, it was right above a fuel tank. And there was a fuel leak that was emanating from that fuel tank. And as a result of that, a spark happened. The next thing I know, the boat exploded. I found myself waking up face down on the surface of a burning boat because I was literally on fire. My right thigh was burning. It was changing colors because I was exposed to the flames right there. As I wake up, I glance down at my left foot, and I actually see my left ankle bone. My left foot was severed to a point where it was just dangling and blood was gushing out. And as I'm starting to come to and become conscious, I hear passengers from the second boat. They're yelling at me, get off the boat, get off the boat. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm in shock. Lord, what's happened? I don't know. But I try to push myself up, but I crumble. I try to push myself up again. I didn't know it at the time. My collarbone was broken in 4 places, so I couldn't even do that. So the only thing that I could do was take my right hand and reach my arm out and put my fingertips in the ridges on the surface of that boat and just drag myself away from the flames, drag myself until I pass out. Now, by the grace of God, thank goodness that there was that second boat there, and we were in shallow water. And some of those passengers, they actually risked themselves to swim over to me and pull me off the edge of the boat, as I was only like 2 or 3 feet away from it. And I'm grateful that they did, because had I been on that boat for another 2 minutes, the second fuel tank exploded. So I wouldn't have been able to survive that. As they get me on this boat, my first thought, my question is, where's Malika? Where's my wife? Because I didn't see her on the boat. There was nobody on the boat but myself. One of the passengers on the second boat said that there was another boat that picked her up and another passenger. They were thrown off of the boat completely when the explosion occurred. So as they get me to shore, I find out that Malika has gone to this clinic, that an ambulance that came and picked her and this one other passenger that were horribly injured and taken them to this clinic. And that was where I was going to be headed. So as I'm waiting for an ambulance, I actually end up getting put on the back of a pickup truck on a piece of plywood, being taken to this clinic by a civilian who just happened to be around in the area. And when they get me to the clinic, they take me off the truck, put me on a stretcher, and they wheel me in. And as they wheel me in, this is the first time I hear Malika. I hear her moans, her pain, her agony. She is suffering, and I can't do anything about it. And they wheel me into this bay. There's 3 bays in this clinic. Malika's in the first bay. One other passenger's in the second bay. They put me in the third bay. And there's one doctor here. So I have a lot of time to try to think and try to figure out what's going on. And I'm praying to God, and I'm thinking, God, I don't know what's happened. I'm in shock. I hope my wife is okay. I try to still myself as much as possible. block out everything else so I could hear Malika and try to understand what's going on and is she all right? I hear her yelling, I hear her in pain, and then I hear things start to quiet down. There's another passenger who's hurt. I hear her yelling, and finally the one doctor, he comes over to me, and I ask him, how is my wife? Now the doctor, he doesn't answer. He tells me that I'm injured pretty bad, and that there's one other passenger who's injured bad, and that they couldn't treat us at that clinic. They were going to send us to the good hospital. And he told me that Malika would come later. So I'm here thinking to myself, okay, well, my wife must not be hurt as bad as I am. That she's coming later. They're not sending her right away. So I'm happy and I'm grateful in a sense to know that she must be okay and that I will get to see her later. So before I know it, they wrap my foot up, what's left of it. They put me on another stretcher to put me on an ambulance to take me to an air ambulance to fly me to Nassau, where the good hospital was. And after a period of time, they get me there in the emergency room, and I'm asking them, what about my wife? Where is my wife? Is she on her way? And before I know it, they just put me in a surgery. I go into surgery. They try to reattach what's left of my foot and pin it to my leg. I wake up 6 hours later, and I'm thinking to myself, when I wake up in ICU, that my wife, she should definitely be here by now. And I wake up, there's a nurse in the room with me, and I ask her, is my wife here yet? Well, the nurse, she leaves the room. She goes out and gets two doctors, and the two doctors come in. And the first thing that I ask them is, what about my wife? Where's Malika? Well, the two doctors, they look at each other a little confused. And I'm here praying and thinking to myself, well, I hope my wife is okay. The two doctors, they leave the room. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the most obvious question I could be asking them right now. But after about 5 minutes, they come back in and they tell me, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but your wife didn't make it. And I'm sitting there. Now, I'm an eternal optimist. I'm thinking that she hasn't made it. You mean that the plane that was supposed to go back and pick her up had to get some fuel or something, has had a delay, and she just hasn't made it here yet? They say, no, your wife died at that clinic. They didn't want to tell you before they put you on the plane to come here that she was no longer alive. So imagine myself, I'm going through what was supposed to be one of the most happiest times in my life with my wife, the woman who, my wife, the mother of my child, my best friend, the person who I'm building empires with. And just like that, I have to hear the fact that she's no longer alive. I cry myself to sleep that night. I find myself asking God, why did this have to happen to us? Now, I know I'm broken physically, but I'm thinking to myself that my wife was going to be all right and that we were going to get through this. And now I have to come to grips with the fact that she's no longer alive. I wake up that next morning, and as I'm still trying to process, because I'm in shock, Diane, I am going through it, I realize I have to call my son and tell my son over the phone what happened. And that is a 12-year-old who, this is the only woman who he's been close to his whole life. He thought mom and dad were going to be okay. They're gone on vacation. We've done this plenty of times before. But I'm telling him, son, your mom's never coming home. To have to hear his screams, his pain, his hurt on the other end, he's not really understanding he wasn't expecting that news. And then he's asking me, Dad, are you going to be all right? And I find myself telling him, yes, son, I'm a little hurt, but I'm going to be okay, when I had no understanding. I had no idea that I was going to be all right. And as I'm still laying there in that hospital bed and I'm trying to understand, God, why did this have to happen to us? What has happened? I find myself feeling worse and worse. And as I'm laying there in that hospital bed, I realize I could see the EKG monitor over my head. And over the matter of 3 hours, I see all my vital signs go from green to yellow to red. And at this point, I'm ready to give up. I'm coming to grips with the fact that, God, you've already taken my wife. God, I don't know what we did to deserve this. God, I just broke my son's heart by telling him his mom wasn't coming home. And now I'm about to die. And I'm starting to, as you know, they say that, you know, you start to have flashes in your life of certain things that happen when you come to realize. And I was in that place. I was thinking back to trying to understand, where did we go wrong to cause this to happen to Malika and I. And as I laid there and I was praying to God and I was mad at God and I was trying to come to grips with the fact that I was about to die too, I was trying to understand that or come to grips with the fact that the next time I closed my eyes was going to be the last time I closed my eyes. And just come to peace with the fact that I hoped that my son was going to be all right. They had stopped trying to treat the infection and were just giving me tramadol to deal with the pain, so I wouldn't suffer as much. And I went to sleep not expecting to wake up to see the next day. Now, by the grace of God, I did wake up that next day, and my vital signs, they were still fighting. They were still bad, but there were things happening in the background that I wasn't fully aware of. My sister and my mom, they had found a way to make it from Tennessee to the Bahamas, and they were trying to work some things out, and the embassy was doing some things. And before I knew it that morning, I'm basically getting confiscated from this hospital because a level 1 trauma unit in Florida saw what happened. They heard what I was going through, and they said they wanted to try to give me the best shot of still being able to survive. So I found myself that morning being put on an airplane, flown to Florida. And as I get there, the doctors, they tell my family that they're going to do everything that they can to try to make sure that I survive. And so now at that point in time, that's when I realized how messed up I was. I had 3rd-degree burns on my right leg. I had a broken right foot. I had a fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs. My collarbone was broken in 4 places. I've been in and out of consciousness 5 times between the time the accident happened and the time I got into that clinic. And my left foot was severed to a point where it seemed as if it was lost. Now, what they did was, as soon as I got there, I had to go into emergency surgery again. And what they said was that basically we're going to have to take his left leg in order to prevent the infection from spreading even further in his body. So I go into surgery and I wake up and I see my left leg missing. Now, over the course of the next couple of days, or the course of the next 4 days, I went through 9 different surgeries. And on one day, I had to go through 5 surgeries in one day just to start fixing some of the things that were broken in me. But after that next day, that's where I was finally getting into a place where I could start to process what was going on. And I was praying to God and I was talking to God, and God spoke to me as clear as I'd ever heard him in my life. And he told me a couple of things. He told me that Malika had lived a good life and that she had did what she was designed to do here on earth, but it was her time to come home. He told me if he wanted to, he could have taken my life when that boat exploded. He could have taken my life when my vital signs went from green to yellow to red. He could have taken me the day before when I went through 5 surgeries and I was still unstable, but that he was keeping me here and keeping me here for a reason. He told me that I hadn't fulfilled my purpose yet in life, and that the life that I had before was no longer the life that I was going to lead going forward. But he had this one message that kept resonating, and it was to be resilient. Be resilient. He said that the obstacles that I've overcome to this point just to still be here were nothing compared to the obstacles that I was going to have to face moving forward. And that I had a choice that I was going to have to make. That if I wanted to, I could feel sorry for myself and live in pity and survive, or I could make the choice to be strong, to be resilient, and to thrive. And that this was the decision that I was going to have to make if I wanted to fulfill my purpose in life. He told me I wasn't going to go back to being an engineer, but I didn't know what that meant moving forward. But it was at that moment when you asked the initial question, what was the moment in which it was defined to me? And keep in mind, I'm still mad at God. I'm still not understanding why this had to happen, but I was being obedient and listening and trying to be able to grasp that I had to be resilient. Now, at that point, I didn't know what resilience truly was, but I was understanding. It became to me clear later that what resilience is not regaining what was lost, but it's reshaping what still remains. And it's what we do with what still remains that allows us to move forward in the life and in the purpose and in the meaning that God has in mind for us. That's what's going to define your story moving forward. So that was the moment that things changed. Now I was in the truest state of despair. I was broken physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. But I understood that with resilience, that was going to be the glue that was going to start putting these pieces back together in my life. And so that was the moment where things started to change, at least spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I was still a mess. And I had to go through this journey where for 2 weeks, I was still in the hospital getting put back together and trying to get to a place where I could at least be able to move, be pushed in a wheelchair. And I went through a period of time where the doctor said that it's going to be 10 months before you walk again with the prosthetic leg. And if you get the prosthetic, you'll never walk like a normal person. And but having that still that belief and faith in God got me through so many different things. As I talk about the recovery, I had to go through overcoming the severe grief, the survivor's remorse, the depression, the anxiety, as well as PTSD. All of these were things that I was dealing with. And as I got released from the hospital, I ended up going to actually having to stay at my sister's house for about 6 weeks to heal physically. They tried to get me in multiple rehab facilities, but I kept getting denied because I only had one functional limb. They said you needed 2 limbs in order for us to be able to do anything with you. My right foot was in a cast, my left shoulder was in a sling, and my left leg was missing. So I was truly down on myself. I had to understand that I wasn't the same person that I was before. And then I had to figure out all of these different aspects of life. How am I going to be a single father to my son? I didn't even know how to put lunch money in his account. I was so used to having that rock in my life, Malika, and having to be able to move forward. But with God, he brought me through this. There were so many things. My physical healing became something that was miraculous. And they said I was a walking miracle. In 3.5 months, I was walking with the prosthetic again. And I was able to start doing things that I never thought imaginable when I was in that hospital bed. I was doing the things physically that I needed to in order to get myself back together, because I knew that it was meant for me to be able to get to this place where I could be there for Cameron. I tell people this story about what it meant for me to keep pushing despite the will not really being there to want to. And go back about a year before this accident happened. Malika and I, we were having a conversation in our basement. We were watching a movie. And in this movie, we saw the main character die early on. And it led to one of these what if questions. What if something were to happen to me? That was the question I asked Malika. If something were to happen to you, what would you want me to do? And Malika told me, she thought about it for a second. And she said that if something were to happen to her and she were no longer here, she wouldn't want me to grieve for too long. She'd want me to go back out there and find happiness in the world again. Then she thought about it for a second. And she said, she came up with this list. And on this list were the names of 7 women that she said under no circumstances whatsoever should they be around our house, be around my son, be anywhere. You know, she was like, them ain't my real friends. So keep them away. I'm going to come back and haunt you. But then the last thing that she said was the most relevant thing. And she said, Ty, if I'm not here, I want you to do everything you can to make sure that the only part of me that's still left here on this earth is well taken care of. And that was our son, Cameron. So when I found myself not really wanting to do the physical therapy to try to get back in line, not going to counseling in order to start to be able to get myself emotionally strong again, not speaking with my spiritual advisors to try to get my mental back where it needed to be, I thought back about my promise to Malika. And these were the things that got me going. And, you know, you minimize, you don't really think how relevant some of those minor conversations may be in that moment. But God put it on us to have that conversation in that point in time. And as a result of it, it gave me a blessing and it gave me instructions on things that I needed to get me moving when I didn't want to move, to be able to start taking those figurative steps when I wasn't ready to, or at least I didn't think I was. And so I knew I had to get myself into a condition where I could at least be there and do what I needed to do for our son. And so the 10-month time that they said you might be able to walk, I was walking in 3.5 months. I started jogging, I started running, I started doing 5Ks, I learned how to swim with one leg. All of these things were amazing things because of what despite the pain that I had to feel, and I blamed God for it, I realized that he was transforming me. He was
Yes.
giving me a means of being able to be an example for other people on, despite what I take away from you, I'm going to give you more. When I found myself being hopeless, and we started talking about the scripture and the word, and there was a scripture that kept coming back to me when I was in the bed, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. I was hopeless, Diane, at a point in time, and I had to understand that God was still using me. He was still talking to me. He was still going to give me a reason to have hope in the future. And even though I didn't know what that future was at that point in time, it was going to be made clear to me as I moved forward and kept the faith.
Well, I want to jump in there for a minute. Three powerful things. You talked about obedience, being obedience, the faith, and that resilience part. And that was your driving forces, that the obedience, the faith, and resilience there. That seems that was your catalyst for you moving forward, right? And my question in all of this, I'm telling you, this is empowering for me. And I'm hoping for the audience that you're leaning in, because you're right. When you're up against these odds of, do I want to go on after something so to that magnitude happens, you lose someone so dear and near to you. All of us have experienced that, someone dear and near to us. And so that piece right there, Tiran, I could feel you when you said, your spiritual advisors, and everybody needs somebody. We cannot possibly handle these things on our own. And God is He's a relationship God, and he wants us to connect with others. Some people don't want to share. Some people want to try to hold it in, and I can handle it. And thank God that you did not just internalize it and just say, I'm going to try to deal with it on my own. And you opened yourself up, and that allowed you to grow and be resilient in this. And this is empowering. It's empowering for me because, that spiritual piece, leaning on God, going to God, trusting and praying, crying out to him. We all need to do that, not just when we need something, right? When we want God to do something for us. No, in the good, the bad, the happy, and the sad, right?
Man,
and my brother, I feel you. So one thing I want to ask you on this is that the empowerment part, you empower so many people through your stories, and just us being in our accountability group, you empower me, brother. He's my brother from another mother. And so as someone who empowers others, can you please, through your story, and as you continue to tell us, what strategies or practices do you find most effective? In oh my goodness, can you share in helping other individuals unlock their potential, or how to get over? Yeah. Can you talk to us about that piece?
So something just that I point out with people, because what I do now is I understand that God put me through this for a reason. I help others who are stuck and paralyzed in grief to be able to get past that, and then be able to develop the resilience in order to deal with life's challenges and obstacles. And then from there, be able to design the aspects of their life to get the life that they're looking for, the life of their dreams. Now, one of the most important things that I had to go through, and this was, first off, part of my journey was, I started doing therapy. God has blessed certain people with gifts and talents to be able to help us understand what is going on and how we can diagnose and fix some of the elements. And this was one of the situations. My grief counseling truly helped me out. But in the midst of it, I learned that I had to change myself. I had to become more open, more vulnerable, more authentic. Now, the way that happened is I started journaling. And, when you start doing that, you start taking the time to meditate, to be able to get those thoughts out of your head and put them on paper. It becomes real. You start to see things a little bit clearer. That is one of the first things that I advise people to do, because we live busy lives. We try to keep so much in our own mind, and we can get cluttered in the way that we're thinking and approaching things. But as I started doing that, it did a couple of things. It allowed me to be able to express emotions in ways that I never had before, to be able to think through and process what was going on. and also to be able to realize that I'm not the same. I don't have the same. I don't have the same. I'm not the same person as I was before. I didn't have the same, ability to move and get around like I wanted to. So I had to figure out how I was going to adjust. And in thinking through, okay, well, I know I'm not supposed to go back and be an engineer from what God had told me, but I knew that there was going to be something that he was going to put on me. And before I realized that there were people coming into my life that were guiding me in different areas. And this is one thing that I say, sometimes going back to what you said earlier, I think in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, when we rely on our own understanding for so much, we're destined to have limitations and fail. But we have to trust in him, and we have to trust in some of the things that are happening. And sometimes he was bringing people in my life that were able to help me in the right ways. We need to be able to discern where that help is coming from and let it be the right help, because sometimes we have people who are experts in certain things that can help accelerate our process to recovery and guide us, and not guide us, but at least expose us to certain directions in which God wants us to walk down. And so as a result of this, I found myself going into different areas that I didn't think. I started journaling my thoughts and ideas. And before I knew it, this journaling turned into a book. And so this was becoming a means of me being able to not just share my story, but find the lessons in what I was going through and realize that those could be expressed to other people to help guide them through the challenges that they're facing. The book turned into me. Well, even before the book, I was asked to speak at a event, and I had never spoken before, and be able to share, just some of what I was going through in the psyche and perspective from someone who was young, who lost a close loved one and had to figure out how to move forward. And I broke down as I was giving this talk because, it was so emotional and it was heavy on me, but I didn't realize that it was intended for me to do that because it touched people in that audience to where they came up to me wanting to understand how could I help them get through their pain and their struggles. And before I knew it, I found myself in places and stages being able to not just share this testimony, but be able to guide people on how to be more resilient. And you don't have to go through tremendous pain of losing a close loved one. We are all going through different pains, different challenges, different struggles every day. God has created certain examples for us to be able to look at and follow and say that this is a way and a means of being able to get through these things. This is what I realized that the intent was. I was going to be a vessel to help give people hope and inspiration that they can overcome the challenges that they're facing. And then if I could be able to leverage that into a clear process on how to do those things based on the circumstances you're in, then I am doing my work in the way he wants me to do it. And so don't know if I answered your question, Diane, but I realized that this is one of the ways that God was guiding me into doing something that I never would have thought of myself, that I never would have expected or planned. So and as going through all of this, I was, as I said, I went through a significant transformation into the person I was, and I was reborn. The Tiran of 6 years ago is not the same person I am, but it was needed for me to be the man that God wanted me to be in this phase of my life. And it's unfortunate that I had to go through that loss, but at the same time, it has shaped me to be a person who I am now. And I have an angel looking down on me and my son, helping us be able to, sort of lead us in a direction as well.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. I love that piece. I have an angel watching over. Yes, indeed. And God loves you so much, Tiran, and hearing your story. And God gets the glory out of your story for sure. And it was all for your good, even though it didn't look and feel like it at the time. Many of us say that, why? Or, we don't see it as some good, but he turns bad situations into good. And like you said, it propelled you into an arena that you never thought you was going to be in. And today, now you are speaking all over the world. And I'm like, this is incredible how God does things, and it's all about, you have to be open. You have to be in the midst of things. Just be open and willing, a willing vessel, and you have no idea where God is going to take you, huh?
Right.
As you can see. And I have a few more questions. Balance. When you talk about balance and vulnerability and strength, tell me, how do you strike a balance between the vulnerability and strength in your message, in your approach when you're speaking on stage and coaching and those things?
Well, what I realized is that, you know, vulnerability is a superpower, and not as many people are willing to expose or put that superpower out. But I realized in going through my journey that being vulnerable helps make it easier for others who are thinking it to actually go ahead and address what's going on. I talk about as a Black man having to deal with the mental health challenges. You don't know how many things that are going through people's mind that they are not addressing, that they aren't dealing with that anxiety or that depression. So by me being vulnerable, talking about it makes it easier for the next person to say, okay, or ask the question, you know, I'm feeling sad and I don't understand why. And then to start that dialogue or that conversation. What I realize is that there is strength in being able to show yourself at this weak point, but then how far he's brought you, how far you've come. And I mean, I have, you know, moments where I was at my worst. But at the same time, I show people and tell people the recovery and let them know that, okay, you can recover from what you're facing. Just because we have these moments and these snapshots in time that aren't the way that we want to be, we have the strength. God is not going to put more on us than we can actually bear. And sometimes we have to go through that adversity to develop that strength. Same thing is like if you go to the gym, you lifting weights, you might be sore, you might be hurt, you might be thinking, God, why am I having to go through this? But you will come back stronger as you start to recover and heal from what you've gone through. And same deal here. It goes with us spiritually, it goes with us mentally, it goes with us emotionally as well. And so, like I said, I open the door for others with my vulnerability. And then the strength of being able to overcome is something that I hope people see because they can emulate it as well.
Absolutely. And I loved your story, Tiran, because it's a lot of men out there that don't like to talk about their issues or whatever, their vulnerability part. And being that you are a man and you coming on, I hope that the guys out there are listening. You have a brother that's opening up, and it's so healthy. It's so liberating to do that. Not many can do it. It's easier said than done, but you have, that's why we have Tiran here today, to let you brothers out there know that, hey, you know, you have a brother that's here to encourage, uplift you. You can talk about it brother to brother because he understands that other side of the piece, you know, not necessarily what, you know, the magnitude of what he went through, but you don't, apples and oranges, you don't compare, but at the same time, it's still adversity. At the end of the day, it's something, you know. So I really thank you for coming on and sharing your story today. It was very, very impactful, very educational, very inspiring and empowering at the same time, because my God, everybody, we all have stories in us and we don't even realize we are packed with all types of stories for all situations. So we're just walking around with these stories in us, and God is saying, come on, y'all. Okay, I put them, I allowed you to go through these things. Now I want you to start having that voice, use your voice to help others. And so he pushed you out there in a unusual way, but now you're out there and you're embracing what God has brought you into, and now you're living it out, and it's so empowering. So in closing, I'm so thankful. I want to close with asking you about legacy and impact. Like, what legacy do you hope to leave through your work, Tiran, and how do you measure the impact you're making on others?
Well, first off, I think legacy is so important. One of the things that I did after everything happened was I got a scholarship foundation created in Malika's name. I wanted to make sure that her legacy carried on. She was a big proponent of education and wanting to help people. So I feel like legacy is something that we should work towards, and then we should also look to carry that for those who aren't here that we know should have it carried on. So I definitely think that that's important. As far as my legacy, look, I want people to view me as someone who has gone through a lot, but has also overcome. And by doing so, when you have that doubt and that question, because I had doubt and questioning myself as to what my future was going to look like. But if you keep that faithfulness, if you keep pushing, if you keep moving forward, it's going to reveal itself. And I hope that I make the impact of being able to help hundreds of thousands of people through my words, through my message, through my instruction, to be able to get over that obstacle, that hurdle that's in their path, that's keeping them from moving over it, from moving forward. So that's what I hope to do, to be able, that's what I will do. Let me not say hope, but I understand that's what I will do as the time pushes forward.
Thank you so much. We have some comments. People have been making comments here in the comment here. We have people saying watching and rejoicing in the Lord on the show today. And we have another lady. She says, "What a powerful testimony you shared today." So we have people chiming in. Good afternoon to you all. And we thank you all for chiming in today on the show. And Tiran, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor having you on. And one last final thing, I would like to know if you could share with the audience, something that most people wouldn't know about Tiran, like a fun fact or a fun hobby, fun food or bucket list. Something about Tiran that we could take with us today about you.
So I got something interesting. I got an interesting story. I know I have an interesting story to begin with, but about 2 months ago, I got the chance to spend some time with the president, Joe Biden, and his wife. And they chose me to be someone who was doing something with them here in Atlanta, based on some of the impact that I'm doing out in the world and helping people get past some of the pain that they're facing. So that was something cool. It was unexpected. It was something that just popped up the day before, and I was like, sure, that'll be fine. So I got to kick it and spend some time with the president and so on for a little bit.
That's awesome. Look, talking about being in the right place at the right time, positioning, huh? Positioning yourself, because you never know, that opportunity shows up, and you got to be ready when it shows up, huh?
Yep. Be ready.
Awesome.
Don't just stay ready. So, but
yes.
But no, that's that. Oh, and I got a weakness for ribs. That's my fun fact, food wise. Some good barbecue ribs. You got me. So.
Well, listen, everyone. If you all want to connect with Tiran, I have his information here. Please, I'm going to put it in the chat here now. Please reach out to him. He has his book. You can go on his site, and his information is here in the chat there. Chat with him. Go on to his site, rebornresilient.com. You can connect with Tiran Jackson there, and he has his book on there and all information that you can receive there and be able to really connect with him. And if you want to have him come talk and speak at one of your events, you can get that information there as well. So again, Tiran, I am so grateful. I'm honored to have you on today on Inspire, Empower You. Thank you so much. And to the audience out there today, we thank you all so much. This is it for our show today. And we want you all to go out there and make this day count on purpose. Until we see you again on Empower, Inspire You. Take care and be blessed. Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Stay in the back.